You need to go, how you add me in that post? Add Pooh Shiesty too now. Y'all stay adding the Brazy. Go add Pooh. Let Pooh know it's up too. Let Pooh know it like that. Cause y'all must think I'm or something. You ain't even no gangster, boy. You tripping, you lame as
Pooh Shiesty and HoneyKomb Brazy beef just got deadly. HoneyKomb Brazy outside on the block in Mobile, Alabama, calling out Pooh Shiesty by name, and what you just heard is not a diss track, it's not a Twitter argument, it's not two rappers playing industry politics. That is a man who has already buried his grandparents because of street beef, standing outside again saying he is ready to die by whatever he is claiming at this moment in the world. These two men move in that silence is somehow the loudest thing in the room right now. By the time I'm done breaking this down for y'all today, you're going to understand exactly how we got here, because this beef did not start with a diss track, it did not start with a tweet, it started years before any of us were watching, deep in the street networks that connect Memphis, Tennessee to Mobile, Alabama in ways most people have no idea about. Let me break it down. Stay locked in, all right gang, to understand why that live hit different, why HoneyKomb's words carry a weight that most rappers' words simply don't. You need the full picture on both of these men, not just the rap. Resume the real story. HoneyKomb Brazy, Mobile, Alabama, born and raised in one of the roughest pockets of the Gulf Coast. This man has been documenting his life on social media since before it was a content strategy, before showing the trenches on live was a format. HoneyKomb was just doing it because that was his reality, his music, his lives, his posts. All of it mirrors a life that most people only ever see in documentaries. He is not performing authenticity, he never learned how to be anything else. But here's what separates HoneyKomb from every other street rapper you've ever heard. This man has already paid the ultimate price for the life he lives, and I don't mean legally, I mean personally, in a way that changes a person at the core of who they are and never lets them go back. In February 2021, HoneyKomb Brazy's grandparents, Tony and Ila Lewis, were murdered in their Mobile, Alabama home, and the way it happened is what shocked the entire rap community. Gunmen sent by an accused drug kingpin named Darren Southall came to that house specifically to send a message to HoneyKomb through his family. They opened fire. The bullet struck multiple oxygen tanks stored inside the home. The tanks exploded. The house went up in flames. Tony and Layla Lewis never made it out, and the trigger for all of it, a Facebook post, a post from HoneyKomb's associate that angered the wrong man and two elderly people who had absolutely nothing to do with any of it, paid for it with their lives. And that is the foundation this man is standing on. When you hear him on that live, when HoneyKomb says Hez ready to die by what Hez claiming, that is not a rapper using threatening language for effect. That is a man who already watched his family die because of the life he lives, who has processed that loss, who has looked at the worst possible outcome up close and has decided he is still not running. Keep that in your head for everything that comes after this, because it changes how every single word. It did not start with a subliminal lyric or a shady Instagram comment. It started in the invisible wiring that has been connecting Memphis street networks to Alabama ones for years before either of these men had a record deal. People look at Memphis and Mobile and assume these are two separate worlds, different states, different cultures. But here is what they don't understand about how the South actually moves. These cities are linked through alliances, through old money, through people who grew up in one city and relocated to another, through artists who built their careers in the same lane and ended up in each other's orbit whether they wanted to or not. HoneyKomb Brazy already had active documented beef with multiple artists operating in the same Memphis adjacent circles as Pooh Shiesty. These are not just music industry rivalries, these are situations that carry real street weight across state lines, and in street culture the rules are simple and they do not bend. If your people beef somebody, you inherit that smoke. You do not get to say that's not my business when it's your circle involved. The alliance makes the decision for you before you even open your mouth. So HoneyKomb is already moving through a world where Memphis is not neutral territory, and then you add Pooh Shiesty into the equation, and specifically you add the man who is basically Pooh's brother, Big 30. Now Big 30 is not just a label mate, he and Pooh have described each other as brothers since before either of them had a deal where one goes the other smoke follows automatically. That's just the code. But here's the detail that connects Big 30 directly to Alabama and changes the whole picture. In October 2020, Big 30 was arrested in Birmingham, Alabama, traveling from Memphis. Cash, a loaded firearm and drugs in the car. Birmingham is not Mobile, but it is the same state, and in the geography of southern street politics that presence matters. It tells you that Pooh Shiesty's closest running partner, his brother, has been moving through Alabama, has connections in Alabama, has history in Alabama, which means by the code that both these men live by. Pooh has skin in whatever is happening in that state, whether he chose it or not. Put all of that together, HoneyKomb's existing beef with Memphis adjacent circles, Big 30's documented presence in Alabama, Pooh Shie being inseparable from Big 30, overlapping OP networks between Mobile and Memphis that stretch back years. These two men were always going to end up in each other's orbit. The question was never if, it was just when, and what would light the match when it finally happened and what lit it. That's where this story goes from street politics into something almost unbelievable. You're ready, because the thing that turned all of that background tension into a full public confrontation is not what you'd expect. It started with a video game. Pooh Shiesty allegedly ran up on HoneyKomb Brazy in a video game, botted him, and then rubbed it in. Publicly clowned him on the internet for it, and I know what you're thinking, a video game, that's what started this. But here's what you need to understand: in the world these men move in, that kind of public humiliation, no matter what platform it happens on, is a test, it's a prod, it's somebody poking at you and watching to see if you flinch. It's the equivalent of stepping on somebody's Jordans in the club and then laughing about it. It's a deliberate signal: we don't rate you. And HoneyKomb Brazy is not a man who has ever let a signal like that go unanswered, so he went on live right then outside on the block, and you can hear it in his voice from the very first second. This is not a man performing anger for the camera, this is a man who has made a decision, he said, and I'm pulling from the live directly here. Y'all supposed to be going up right now, y'all must think him some kind of joke. You got everything in the world and you're out here calling out my people on a video game, but when it's real life y'all don't pop it back. That's the type of people y'all are. That right there was the declaration that was HoneyKomb drawing a line in the sand publicly and daring the other side to step over it. But then the live shifted into something even more revealing, because HoneyKomb stopped talking about Pooh's side and started talking about his own city, Mobile, Alabama, his own people. And this is where you really feel the full weight of what's happening. He said, every time I say something y'all go up on Brazy, y'all only want to go at me, but y'all won't go at Pooh. Y'all letting out of town come play with Alabama like that, and y'all don't pop it back. Y'all some hoes. That is a man who feels abandoned by his own city in real time, and if you understand anything about street psychology, that is the most dangerous emotional state a man like HoneyKomb can be in, because now it is not just about Pooh Shiesty anymore. Now it is about whether Mobile has his back, whether everything he has given to that city, including his grandparents' lives, means anything to the people around him. The pressure is not just coming from the outside now, it's coming from everywhere at once. And then he said something toward the end of that live that should have stopped everybody cold. He said, I'm ready to die by that, you catch me, kill me, boy, yeah, I'm on that for real. This is a man who buried his grandparents because of a Facebook post, who knows more than almost anyone alive what these situations can become when they leave the internet and find the physical world, and he is still standing there on the block on live saying he will not move. That is not a rapper using threatening language for effect. That is a man who has already made his peace with the worst possible outcome. Now here's where people started connecting the dots, and I need y'all to follow me carefully here, because this goes much deeper than a live rant on social media. First, on that live, HoneyKomb brought up LDO, and if you know anything about the landscape of mobile street politics, that name is not random. These are affiliations, organizations with real geography, real history, real membership that predates any rap career. The fact that HoneyKomb is invoking LDO in the same breath as calling out Pooh Shiesty's camp tells you something critical. This beef has already spread beyond two individuals. It is touching organizations, it is touching hoods, it is touching allegiances that have nothing to do with music and everything to do with who controls what in Mobile, Alabama. Second, HoneyKomb invoked Pop 'em Smoke on that live. He said, long live Pop 'em Smoke, we pop smoke for real. On the surface that reads like a tribute, but listen to the context he said it in. He said it directly after talking about pulling up and being about it. That is not a tribute, that is code. That is HoneyKomb telling you that he and his people move like Pop Smoke moved, regardless of the cost, and everybody in this culture knows exactly what happened to Pop Smoke. That invocation is not a memorial, it is a warning. Third, and this is the part that should have had everybody paying closer attention, HoneyKomb was completely explicit on that live that this has nothing to do with rap. He said, I ain't rhying with y'all, that Alabama stuff got nothing to do with brazing him in my own lane. This ain't rap smoke, this ain't about music. When a man who has a platform, a fan base, a career, everything to gain from keeping things in the music space, when that man explicitly says this is not about music, you have to take that at face value, because it means whatever resolution exists for this situation will not come from a diss track or a label phone call. It has to happen through the channels the streets use to resolve things, and those channels are a lot less forgiving than the internet. And then there is Pooh Shiesty silence. Some people read that as unbothered like hes, above engaging like hes, too locked in on his comeback to get dragged into drama. But here's the other read, and the streets know better. Memphis does not produce men who ignore real situations. Pooh Shiesty did not build what he built, survive what he survived, come home from a federal bid and start rebuilding by being somebody who lets things slide when they actually matter. His silence might not be peace, it might be something else entirely, being planned quietly. All right, where does this stand right now? HoneyKomb Brazy has not backed down, has not walked a single word back, has not reached out publicly to squash anything. He put his position on record outside on the block and left it there for everyone to see. A man who wanted an exit ramp would have found one by now. He is not looking for one. Pooh Shiesty has continued moving like a man focused on getting his career back in order after his bid. New music, fan engagement, rebuilding momentum. On the surface it looks like the smart play, like a man choosing his future over a conflict. But here's the problem: HoneyKomb does not read that silence as peace, he reads it as avoidance, and in the culture both of these men operate in avoidance doesn't make the pressure go down, it makes it accumulate. Every day that passes without a resolution, the tension builds until something gives. What happened on social media after the live drop told you everything. Mobile was divided, some people standing with Brazy, some saying hes moving wrong, some staying suspiciously quiet and watching from a distance. Memphis and 17 adjacent people on guard, spectators treating it like entertainment, and somewhere underneath all of that noise, real people in real cities making real decisions about where they stand and what they are willing to do about it. The thing that hits hardest when you sit with all of this is something HoneyKomb said almost in passing on that lie. He said all Bra trying to do is get the city back together. That was his stated intention going in. He was not trying to start a war, he was frustrated, he felt disrespected when all he was trying to do was build something. He extended his hand toward unity and felt like he got clowned instead. And now here we are, a man who wanted community ended up in confrontation. A man who buried his grandparents over a Facebook post is back in the middle of public beef that lives on social media. The irony of that is not lost on anyone who has been paying real attention. Here's where I need y'all to zoom out with me for a second, because there's something happening in this culture that this beef is just one chapter of. HoneyKomb Brazy's grandparents were murdered because of a Facebook post, not a diss track, not a shooting. A post from somebody in his orbit angered the wrong man, and two elderly people who had nothing to do with any of it died in a fire in their own home. HoneyKomb knows better than almost anyone alive what happens when internet words find their way into the physical world. And yet here we are watching that same man who lived through that, who buried those people, who knows exactly what this can become. Here we are watching him on live again, back in another public confrontation on social media over something that started on a video game, because the culture we are in, the culture of clout and proving realness on platforms that reward engagement regardless of whether that engagement is peace or conflict, that culture makes backing down almost impossible once you've stepped forward publicly, because in these streets backing down publicly reads as weakness, and weakness is more dangerous than the beef itself. Both of these men are caught in that trap right now. HoneyKomb went public because he felt publicly disrespected. Pooh Shiesty now has to figure out how to handle a public challenge without either looking soft or letting things escalate past the point of no return. There is no clean move on the board. That's exactly what makes this so volatile. What he'll say is this: HoneyKomb Brazy is not a man who performs toughness. His track record is written in things that cannot be faked, in losses that cannot be staged. And Pooh Shiesty is from Memphis, a city that has never produced men who fold easily under pressure. So whatever the outcome of this situation, understand that both of these men have something at stake that goes way beyond streams, views, and social media clout. Real, recognize real, and right now neither one of them is willing to be the one who blinks first. So where does this go from here? Best case, somebody with real credibility reaches, and somebody both sides actually respect. A conversation happens that never touches social media, and both men find a way to put this down before it goes somewhere nobody can come back from. It happens. Real ones talk, real beefs get squashed when the right people get involved and pride gets set to the side. Worst case, I don't need to spell it out, you'll already